Hi, everyone. I'm so thrilled to be participant 5,387,000.
What?
I said my participant ID was well over 5,000. So I'm feels like there's a lot of people out there using Zoom these days.
Good afternoon, everybody. How are you? Spectacular. I love that. So, how was everyone's day? How was school? What did you learn? Who did you get into a fight with on the playground? I'm a little punchy today, just warning you.
You just took the words right out of my mouth.
Is it that obvious? I don't know. 2 weeks
How was
of
Wilson today?
2 weeks of utter isolation will do that to you. All righty, so let me, okay. So just a couple of quick things to let you know. I open up for questions if anybody has them. I just wanted to give you a couple of quick updates. First and foremost, we do have a shipment of masks that should arrive tomorrow. So if anyone was looking for masks for buyer showings this weekend, or if you had promised them to sellers, we finally do have some masks arriving. We may have 2 shipments of masks. If we get more than we need, we'll go and we'll donate them to a hospital that needs them. But right now we're going to offer them to you guys first, just to make sure that everyone is able to continue to do what they need to do and stay as safe as they would prefer to stay. So once those come in, we will let you know, and you can make arrangements with your market center to stop by and pick them up for whatever your needs are. We also do still have some hand sanitizer and some gloves. So if anyone is needing those for either new listings or for opportunities this weekend, again, please just connect with the staff in your market center, and we will make those arrangements to have them ready for you. Just from a market update perspective, know what's going on right now in our world. It's interesting. Our under contracts are remaining pretty strong, and I think that many of you are feeling that. Do you feel that under contracts are remaining pretty strong from what you're seeing and doing? Yeah, like a lot of head nodding. So recognize if you're not writing business right now, if you're not putting things under agreement, you may be a little bit behind the curve. And so I want you to hear that, not from a finger wag perspective, but from the perspective of your colleagues are experiencing kind of this bounce in writing business right now. The market numbers in the MLS prove that. Again, week after week after week, we're now 3 weeks in with pretty steady under contracts, and they're not. It's not much lower than what they should be this time of year. So I think that this is an opportunity to make hay while the sun shines, right? Knowing that our circumstances could change at any moment based on where things go with our external scenario. So do know that right now under contracts are holding steady. What's not holding steady, which I think spells opportunity for you, is what metric do you think? Listings taken, that's exactly right. It was all right on the tip of all of your tongues. I could see it, right? Listings taken, not holding steady. Listings taken, and interestingly enough, I wrote down these numbers and I think I left them on my desk. So I'll do it from memory. In the kind of year to date, we're down about 10% year over year. Month to date, down about, I think 9 or so percent month to date. Last 2 weeks, down about 38%. Last week alone, down 50%. So here's what listings taken is doing, right? We're seeing a curve of tanking for listings taken. What does listings taken project?
Listings sold.
What's going on in the market?
Future
So it projects future income. You got it, right? Listings taken projects future income, right? And so I want us all to be very cognizant of the fact that just from an industry perspective, the slide in listings taken affects everybody. It doesn't matter if you consider yourself a listing agent or not. It doesn't matter if you are a listing agent and you're putting things on or you're not putting things on. The general trend in listings taken drying up creates an interesting challenge for us moving forward, right? And so we're going to continue to watch that and be addressing that in our in our trainings and in our conversations with you directly. If you're not plugging into masterminds, if you're not plugging into trainings throughout the day, again, like we said this morning, that doesn't mean all day long, right? This isn't MTV. Don't sit and just stare at the Zoom, but watch specifically for things that are of interest or of need in your business. Make sure you're plugging in to those opportunities, because I want us to be really, really cognizant of leaning in on activities right now, so that when the restrictions are lifted, I know I've said this 1,000 times, you're probably going to hear me say it 1,000 times more, because we have minimally 4 more weeks of this and probably 8 more weeks of this. So imagine hearing what I'm saying over and over and over again for 2 months straight. You'll all be at Coldwell Banker by the end of May. No, that was a joke. That was a joke. Everyone laugh. Kimberly's horrified that I said that. Horrified. My point was you would be sick of hearing me speak. Was the point, right? So recognize what's happening in the market, right? I know your team leaders met earlier today to plan for the rest of this week and early next week in terms of what we're going to be bringing you. And I know there is a class scheduled on pulling those numbers and creating those opportunities for yourselves so that you can be having those conversations with your clients as well. So do plug into that. I wanted to let you know that FEMA, for those of you who have either clients or database people who live on the water and or near rivers that need flood insurance. So anybody with flood insurance people in their database or listings on the market that need flood insurance, FEMA has extended the flood insurance renewal grace period, right? So anybody who had to renew their flood insurance policy anywhere from February 13th of this year through June 15th, they have extra time. There's usually a 30-day grace period. That grace period's now been extended to 120 days. So they have extra time to pay. Again, if that is specific to any of your folks, that may be a helpful phone call for you to make to them so that they know that they don't necessarily have to write that check right now. Anybody with an employee, one or more, on this call, please just remember that we're pretty certain that the PPP portion of the relief package, which is the Paycheck Protection Program, does apply to real estate teams as well as real estate brokerages. If it were me, I would just apply if you're interested in applying. What that does is it allows you a grant/loan, depending on how you use it and how consistent you keep your employees in place, of up to 2.5 times monthly payroll expenses as averaged for the last 12 months. And if you do certain things, that loan may be forgivable. So just recognize there are some opportunities out there for you if you have employees and they're W-2 employees and you can prove it. I'm going to show you a link shortly with everybody else on where to go to get some of these things. So we just heard back that is likely something for real estate teams to utilize as well as brokerages. One of the things that I want to make sure that you know about is, I'm going to share my screen with you for a second. There is this, I'm going to put this link in the chat box. How do I do that? Here we go. This is a link that everyone should go to find out more about what is being offered from the Small Business Association of the Small Business Administration. And it has everything to do with the Paycheck Protection Program that I just talked about. For those of you who do not have employees, you should know, and I'm getting more information on this literally as we speak. It's being sent to me, so I can talk about it tomorrow morning or tomorrow at 4:30. Or just go here and start reading and applying. This economic injury disaster loan and loan advance does apparently give you an opportunity for those of you who are eligible up to $10,000 of forgivable debt to small businesses. It shows up in 3 days. Again, there's some eligibility requirements here, but I want you to be aware of the fact that there are some grants out there for you, for small business owners, which includes, at least with my information, includes independent contractors to receive. How that's a grant, not a loan, and how it's forgivable, I don't yet have specifics on that information, but do read and or start applying and see what you can find out. I would also encourage you to, if you need a loan, this may be a good place for it. I think the interest rate is almost nothing, and the repayment terms are very, very, very favorable. Here's why I'm throwing this out at you right now. I want you to recognize that even though we are in one of the harder hit areas, and we're on the outside right now of one of the harder hit areas, right? We're a part of the tri-state area, but we're not New York and New Jersey, and hopefully, knock wood, we will not become New York or New Jersey. I want you to recognize that this was announced and made available to the entire country, which means you have the entire country who is going to be pushing to with their hands out, looking for some assistance, whether they need it or not. And so I would encourage you, if this is something that even remotely sounds like you might need it, go ahead and apply for it and see what happens. Start the process. I believe that these things are, that this one that's on the screen right now is available right now. For those of you who were looking at the PPP earlier, I believe this loan applications start being accepted on Friday of this week. So spend some time on this site because it has a lot of interesting information on it. And I want you to know that there are things that are available to you that you either could or should be taking advantage of. Again, if you don't need a loan right now and someone's offering you a loan at a relatively negligible interest rate with great repayment terms, you might want to go ahead and take that out just in case. Right? Just in case. And the just in case that I'm really talking about, I'm going to come back so I can look in your eyeballs. The just in case that I'm talking about is just in case you don't have an income for 2 or 3 or 4 months. What does that scenario look like in your world? What does it look like in your house? And I don't say that to be a downer. I don't say that in any other for any other reason except that because we just don't know what's going to happen. I want you to be prepared. I want you to be prepared for whatever might occur. And I don't want you all of a sudden a month from now decide that, wow, this is getting worse and we're not going to be back to work in a full-time capacity or without any of these restrictions for a whole lot longer than I thought. Now I think I'll apply and they'll be out of money, right? Understand that there are limits to what was approved. I think I said to you, I can't remember when I said it to whom, but I said earlier today that what Gary is looking at and what I think economists are looking at is that the $2 trillion that was approved is likely just the first step in all of this. We're likely to see at least another $4 or $5 trillion in approved spending to jumpstart the economy when we can jumpstart the economy. But if this kind of money would be helpful to you right now, do not waste time. When we finish this call, for those of you who are in Ignite, right, as soon as we finish Ignite, just start reading and start applying. I printed out the application forms this morning for my businesses to start gathering the information tonight so I can work on them tomorrow so that when I have the opportunity on Friday to speak to a bank that goes and does those loans, I can have all my stuff ready and get it in. I'm not spending time personally trying to figure out whether I need it or not. I'm applying first. I can always give it back. I can always withdraw, right? Get in line if you need to be in line. Get in line now. Do not wait. From me to you, take that for what it is. I just want you to be prepared. I think that's the update I have for you. Who has some questions? Any questions on what we talked about this morning? Any questions on what we just talked about tonight? We've got another 13 minutes before night starts, so talk to me. What's going on?
Get in line for what? I'm sorry, I missed the whole thing.
All right, so see me afterwards. Just text me, whoever that was. I think that was Anita. Text me afterwards, and I'll be happy to send you the link for what we talked about. I can't repeat it all over again.
Rick, this is Lou Galasso. Hey, if we sign a new tenant, are they now immediately entitled to defer I think it's sort of 3 months payments? So, you know, I have a rental, they sign the lease, now can they not pay the landlord for is it 90 days or just for existing tenants?
Yeah, so great question, and what I believe to be the case is no one has said to tenants that they don't have to pay for 90 days. That is not a part of any new law. It's not a part of any executive order. What has been said is that landlords may not begin or continue eviction processes until May the 2nd, right? Through May the 1st, no evictions can start. The 90-day piece of that was if you are an owner of a multifamily property, you can appeal to your bank for up to for a 30-day, and I can't remember right now if it's deferment or I have it right here. So 30-day forbearance up to 90 days. So it's 30 days if you can prove financial hardship, if you can prove your tenants aren't paying. That's where that 90 days comes into play.
Okay.
But there is nothing out there that says tenants don't have to pay for 90 days. Trust me when I say there may be a number of tenants who believe they don't have to pay for 90 days because they can't be evicted until at least the process can't start till May the 1st.
Yeah.
But does that help, Lou?
Yes, thank you.
Excellent, excellent. What else? So there's a question down, is it May 1st or May 2nd? I believe the way the governor's executive order was written, this is a state order, is that they cannot begin or proceed with eviction processes through May the 1st. So on May the 2nd, that could then start unless he extends that.
Okay.
Jim, do check your email. I sent you something earlier on the question that you posted to me up on the screen. What else? Any other questions?
There's still no information on the unemployment situation, right?
So the unemployment situation is a little bit frustrating because we continue to hear that NAR and CTR are going to be giving us the guidance that we so desperately need to figure out how we fit into this whole thing. Let me give you what I do know, different from perhaps yesterday. What I do know is that all unemployment is going to be handled via the state, even if it's coming from the federal government, it's going to be handled via the state. Most of you, as independent contractors, are not eligible or have not been eligible for state unemployment. It's unclear whether or not you will now be eligible for state unemployment or if you're only eligible for the $600 a week from the federal government as part of this whole relief package. That's the piece that remains unclear. Here's what I would do if I were you. I would not wait. If filing for unemployment is something that is of import to you and or a necessity for you because you are not making money, hey, Mike, camera up, camera up. And so there we go. You get to know people on such an intimate level on Zoom. Isn't that fun? I think he's probably more embarrassed than I am, and that's why he turned his camera off, because he's red in the face. And we love you. Some of us may love you more now. The idea of starting to file the claim now. Start the claim now. Go to the Connecticut Department of Labor site. I think it's ctdol.gov, but don't hold me to that. Google Connecticut Department of Labor. Find the button that says file for unemployment and start going through the process, right? If you get stuck on, if you get stuck on a question, do the best you can is what I would say. There are things like, there are things that ask who your employer is. Put your own name in there instead of, don't put Keller Williams Realty because you're not an employee of Keller Williams Realty, right? You're self-employed. So when it asks you your employer, put in your own name. If it asks for you to describe your position or your field, understand real estate's not going to show up on any drop-down menus because historically we've not been eligible for state unemployment, and they're using the same site that they used from last week, right? They didn't create a whole new site since last week. And so you're going to have to kind of fumble your way through some of those questions. Here's what I know to be true. If in fact it's unclear to you, that means it's unclear to the Department of Labor as well. And at some point, a human being is going to have to step in and ask some questions of you, right? And so if I have to sit and call Jody and say, Ms. Boxer, can you tell me exactly what you do for a living and how you've been affected by what's going on, and right, so Jody's gonna have to figure out an answer to that, right? But and here's the other thing, don't lie, right? What do you do for a living? I'm a real estate agent. How has this affected you? Well, it has slowed down. It's slowed down. I've lost closings. I've slowed down my ability to actually list, right? So recognize that that the site is not going to be perfect, and you won't be able to answer some of the questions as specifically as you want. My advice to you is soldier forward anyway and get the claim filed if that is something that is of import to you, and allow DOL to come back to you and say, we need clarification or we need more information. It is very unlikely, notice I'm not saying it's impossible, but it is very unlikely that DOL will come back and say, sorry, you're out. Because even if they do, there's an appeal process, right? So recognize that your best opportunity right now is to go ahead and file and then figure it out as we go. I'd almost love to have a volunteer. Don't raise your hand now. See me privately. I'd love to have a volunteer that would allow me to kind of go through the process with them online. So we share a screen and we'll get you submitted so that I can then come back to everybody else and say, here's what, because I've never done it. So I don't know what it looks like and I don't know what the questions are, right? So if that makes sense for you and you want some help with it and you want me to kind of walk through that process with you, just somebody volunteer. It's going to be the first person who volunteers because I can't do it with 75 different people. But first person who volunteers, send me a text and nope, already done. We're done. We're out. We're closed. And we'll walk through that process. What else? Anything else?
I have a quick question.
Yes, ma'am. Silva.
Thank you. Is there a grace period for unpaid common charges?
Is there a grace period for
unpaid common charges before the association send the person into foreclosure? Because it's usually after the second month of unpaid, yeah?
So great question. I have not seen anything in this legislation that specifically addresses common charges. What I would do is I would call the complex, I would call the management company at the complex and let them know what it is you're doing to attempt to rectify whatever issue you or your client may be having, right? And so what you may be able to do is call them and say, look, this has thrown my income for a curve. I don't expect it to get better. And I've just applied for a small business loan that, if approved, will be in my bank account in 3 days. So would you do me a favor and delay whatever actions you may be taking? And can you please send me in writing what you're willing to do for me, right? That goes for anybody who's having a struggle with anything right now. Pick up the phone and talk to the person who you either owe money to or have a monthly bill to, and talk with them about some kind of either forbearance, deferment, forgiveness, something or other. Right? People are willing to listen right now. I can tell you from very personal experience, not everybody is willing to listen. And sometimes it's because they want to see what else might be available for some of you, for some of us, before they go ahead and forgive or say, don't pay me. They want to make sure that you're taking from over here to be able to pay them, right? I can't say I blame them. I would do the same thing with my own tenants and walk them through all of the different opportunities they have to receive income to be able to then pay the rent, right? We probably have time for one last question. Who's got it?
Hey, okay. Rick?
Yes.
Okay, you got a question already, or?
Sorry?
I was gonna make a comment, but if somebody has a question, let them ask first.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead. Lydia.
It's Lydia. So question about the profit share that you mentioned this morning.
Yes.
Would like to know what, is there a specific time frame that it was discussed in terms of this, what time frame this would cover, a time period? And
the only thing, yes, so the only thing that was discussed this morning or after this morning was March, right? We're looking at this on a month-by-month basis because we can't see further than any of the rest of you can see right now, right? And so we're looking at what do the profits look like in March? How can we fast forward some expenses from the future into March to reduce those profits and keep them so that we are still profit sharing but still get the benefit of accelerating some large expenses. And then a month from now, when we're looking to transmit again, we will look at what April looks like. Understand, at some point, you run out of realistic expenses to advance. So we're taking it on a month-by-month basis so that we can try and look ahead 15 or 30 days and see what the need is and what the realities are. Does that answer that?
yes, and what percentage was the thought of the reduction? Is there any percentage?
So
You said it wasn't all of it, so.
Correct. We are not taking the advice of our region and reducing things down to zero. What we are doing is looking at whatever the amounts are, right? It depends on the market center you're in and the amount of profit that was being generated by that market center for that month. What we're looking to do is two things, as I mentioned this morning: pay an extra monthly rent expense. In the Stanford Market Center, that's an extra $30,000. In the Ridgefield Market Center, that's an extra $16,000. We're also looking to start accelerating some of the balance sheet items that would have been taken care of over the course of the entire year, and get rid of some of those and divide them up so that we're not cratering or tanking any one month. So I can't give you a specific percentage. It's an extra thing of rent plus a little bit more to make a dent in balance sheet items.
Okay, was this thought to be a temporary thing in terms of like when the company gets in a better place, would it be replenished back, or was it just, an outright?
So it will naturally be replenished back because once recovery starts to occur, right, the expenses that would have been paid in June and July have already been paid. So now you have a larger profit in June or July or in August, whatever those months are, right? Because we've accelerated them. So again, it's only moving the profit from month to month. It's not eliminating the profit altogether. It will show up again at some point because we've accelerated expenses, and the profits will then follow when there are months with larger profits and no expenses or fewer expenses. Does that help? Excellent. All righty. So guys, it is 5 o'clock. That is all the time that we have. For those of you who are sticking on for Ignite, we're going to start just in 1 minute. For those of you who are not sticking on for Ignite, it was lovely to see you. Have a lovely evening. We'll see you at 9 o'clock tomorrow morning. Good night, good night, good night. Guys, for Ignite, we're going to take just a 1 minute break to allow some people to clear, and we will start just in 60 seconds.
Hey, how are you? Good. I'm actually just doing a Boxer Realty Group check-in, just to check in to see how you guys are doing. How
All righty. Good evening. How's everybody?
Hello.
Great.
So let's do the following. Oh, I see my groupies. My groupies are on. It's the Gilberts in their house. I love it. So if I get too tired, Donna, I'm just going to, you'll see me kind of keel over. I'll push the button to have you just take over. Donna Gilbert wins the award for taking Ignite the most times out of anyone on the entire planet. I actually think Gary called her a couple of weeks ago and said, could you come and help us write the next one? So, because she knows it intimately. Always good to see you both. So let's do this. Let's start with two things. First, you had some homework. You had some homework regarding your big why. And I would like to talk a little bit about that and what you thought about the homework and how I can help you with understanding that homework a little bit better, if that would be helpful. The other thing I want to do is get some ahas from Monday. Again, Monday was a different version of Ignite because we're mixing some of the material with the things that you need to know for right now. Tonight will be the same. We're going to spend some time talking about really diving in deep with your database tonight as the keep it topical piece of all of this, as well as go through some conversations and some content from the materials. So talk to me about ahas. What stuck out on Monday that you wanted to just underline? You can go back to your notes. You can think for 10 seconds or so. Just remember, it's like the radio though. So if no one's talking, it's dead air, and that's never good. Dead air is not good. So who has an aha or two or seven? Well, maybe just two that you want to share. See, there's that dead air I was talking about. So does that mean that no one learned anything on Monday? And yet 56 of you came back.
I still go back to
Lead
what,
generation, lead follow-up, conversions, appointments.
So the 20%, yes?
Yes, the 20%.
Yeah, so recognize that 20%, the 20% ultimately is what we want to be certain that you are focusing on. Ah, yes, okay. Fiona's having some mic issues. I'll get to that in a second, Fiona. Remembering that 20% that we focused on should be how you write your schedule, right? When you're building your calendar, and we're going to spend some time on schedule management today. When you're building your calendar, do you have those 7 things in mind? Do you have them as a tool written on a piece of paper or tattooed on your forehead or in the back of your hand, wherever you're going to tattoo it, right? To make sure that the idea of what am I doing today, how am I spending my time, fits into one of those 7 categories, right? Remember that you need to focus your time and energy on the things that matter most in terms of business growth. So be really clear that 20%, that wasn't just something that we wrote down for 10 minutes to have some fun. Use that as a tool, right? Make sure that you're monitoring how you spend your time with that list of 7 things that make up your 20%. I would, if I were you, I would also set your phone 3 times a day or so. Once mid-morning, once mid-afternoon, once late afternoon. Set your phone 3 times a day and have it ask you this question. Am I in my 20% right now? Because that'll stop you wherever you happen to be and allow you to kind of think, what am I doing right now? Am I writing ad copy for my new listing? Well, is that part of your 20%? No, that's not part of your 20%. Does it have to get done? If you're a solo agent, does that have to get done? Does the ad copy have to get written?
Yes.
Yeah, of course it does. Understand that as a solo agent, you get to be in charge of the 20% and the 80%. Woohoo! In that case, you need to focus on the 20% happening before the 80%. You need to use that as a focus tool so that your 20%, the things that we listed, lead generation, lead follow-up and conversion, appointments, contracts and negotiation, closings, although closings, you're exempt from closings right now, right? It's the one little happy dance we can do right now because we're actually not approved to go to closings, right? That's not an essential activity. The closing activities themselves are essential, but us attending closings, not essential. So that closings piece can, at least for the next 4 or so weeks, you can scratch that sucker right off. So now you only have 6 things to worry about. And then of course, practice education and role play and money management. Stop a couple of times a day and just see what it is you're doing. I will tell you, I do that myself, and I find so many times that I am in my 80. I am doing something that I shouldn't be doing, right? Not so much the last 10 days or so. I have not had that issue the last 10 days. And yet, previous to the last 10 days, because we're all human, right? We get sucked into a something, either a phone call or a discussion or something moves across our desk and it's like the shiny penny, it's the squirrel. And we're off doing something over here instead of really being focused on those dollar productive activities that drive our business. Great aha. Let's do 2 more.
Rick, I got one.
Hey, go ahead, Chris.
You said 2 things that struck. First was, are you certain that what you believe to be true is as true as you think it is?
Yeah. I kind of hate that question. And yet it's a pretty powerful one, isn't it? And why do we tend to hate it? Because it's a challenge question, right? We're challenging our own beliefs. We're challenging our own sometimes values to say, okay, is what I really believe, was what I really think about this the absolute truth? And you can take that shallow or you can take that deep. You can have a thought, as I mentioned on Monday, about expireds, that expireds eat their young, and so therefore I will never call an expired, right? That could just be your limiting belief about how expireds behave. Or you can take that deep. You can go kind of into your soul on that one to say, wow, are the things that I believe about business in general, are the things I believe about myself, my self-worth, my ability to contribute to the world. I mean, you can get as shallow, as deep as you want with that question. But it's really one of those questions, Chris, and I thank you so much for bringing it up as an aha, that when you really start to ask it of yourself and you're brave enough to answer it of yourself, it really starts to change your world. What was the second one? I'm curious. Did you have a second one, Chris?
It was decreasing your price increases your value when having the discussion with sellers about dropping price.
Yeah. Yeah, crazy important, right? Especially right now, just so you know, we won't get, in this material, we won't get to our seller unit until next week. And that's probably the middle to end of next week. However, I do know that what we have on the calendar, I'm not sure when, if Dan or Steve Scott are on this call, maybe put in the chat box what we designed for SPA review and seller strategy sessions, right? Which is our fancy way of saying price reductions, right? So we're gonna review the strategic positioning analysis, and we're going to review the seller strategy session and how you have those conversations. We need to be more objective today than we ever have been before to help people make good decisions to get their property sold before anything horrible happens to them, i.e. a reduction in equity. So recognize that that's a skill that we have to really practice and hone and get really excellent on very quickly, very quickly. For those of you who are less good at having those conversations, I mean in-person, consultative, fact-based, objective conversations to help sellers make a decision about positioning their property so that it causes it to sell. If that's something that you're not really masterful at, you need to spend a whole lot of time, those of you with inventory, in the next 48 to 72 hours practicing that. And if you want or need help, just let me know. If enough of you want or need help on that, I'll schedule a little session where we can all just kind of talk about it, other than what we scheduled for. When is it, Steve? We're working on next week's Zoom calendar, which will include the SPA, as Rick mentioned. Yes, I was looking for the actual date on that. So if we don't have that, it's coming. I think it's Monday or Tuesday. Just recognize that. Okay, one more aha, and then we're gonna move forward. I keep forgetting we don't have 3 hours together. We only have an hour and a half, so I gotta shut up and keep moving. One more aha, who's got it?
The quantity.
Say it again, Bogdan.
The quality is in the quantity.
Oh yeah, that's that's tried and true, right? Tried and true. If you want to find better buyers, find more buyers. If you want to find better sellers, find more sellers. Qualification questions also do an amazing job in that, right? And we're gonna work on that again next week when we hit our buyer and our seller units in this course. Really giving you great qualification conversations to have, qualification forms that you can have people fill out so that they're self-qualifying. We'll get all to that next week. A lot of really great stuff. But in the interim, recognize that if you're really looking for someone who will buy something right now, you just have to keep looking for more people, because somewhere in that more is someone who's a 30-day buyer. There's someone who's a 30-day seller, right? Too many of us stop short. We take a new listing and say, okay, now I have to focus on getting my new listing sold. That's not how this game is won, right? This is a volume business. It's a volume game. And so when you take your new listing, go take another one and another one and another one. Does everyone know this? Everyone say goodbye to Wilson. What is that? What did I just draw? Can you all see it?
Can't even read it.
You can't read it? Okay, so it says 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 50, 50 to 100. I should do the whiteboard and draw it on your whiteboard, but we don't have time for that. So that's what that says. It's 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 50, 50 to 100. What is it? I know some of you have seen this before.
Listings.
Thank you, Silva. At least someone listens when I speak, right? So this is a listings chart. And what that means is if you currently have 0 listings, the thing that you should do the minute we get off this phone call is figure out how you move from 0 to 1. Go take a listing. Find someone who needs to sell their house, right? we're going to talk on Friday about where you look for all of that and what all the sources of business are and how you're attacking that at a high level. But your deal, if you have no listings, is to go find someone to list, right? Remember, without listings, you're out of business. Without listings, you're out of business. There are a lot of you within the sound of my voice who need to write down what I just said. Without listings, you are out of business. It's like opening a knick-knack shop and not having any knickknacks, right? If you have 1 listing right now, your goal is to get to 10 as quickly as possible. So obviously, if you have 4, if you're in the middle there, your goal is also to get to 10 as quickly as possible. Why does it go 0 to 1 and then 1 to 10? Why doesn't it go 1 to 2? This is the interactive part. Say it again.
For every listing, you should get 2 more buyers.
Well, so yes, that's true. So that's like a comment that's really what I call squeezing the orange, right? So for every listing you take, it should lead you to at least another opportunity to list a property plus at least 2 solid buyers, right? And we're gonna really address the squeezing of the orange again later in the course. All the good stuff's coming later. Have you noticed that? But why if you're at 1 is the goal not to take 1 more? Why is it to take now 9 more? Why are you now pushing to 10?
Because if you know how to take 1, then you should know how to take 10.
There you go, Jody Boxer. Thank you for that. Right? This is a momentum conversation. You've already proven that you can go out, find a seller, and list that property successfully. So now just go do it again and again and again and again and again. And the whole idea of moving from 1 to 10 is to prove to yourself that this is a volume game. Right? If we said move from 0 to 1 and then 1 to 2, that wouldn't be a volume game. How you win in real estate is volume, right? And so we want you to push to 10 as quickly as you possibly can. Now, the rest of this, then 10 to 20, 20 to 50, 50 to 100, and every time the arrows or the direction changes, it's not because I ran out of room on the board, it's because the direction changes signal that that's probably another higher in your business, right? Because for many of us as solo agents, when we get to carrying 20 listings, we're going to need some assistance there. When you get to carrying 50 listings, you're going to need at least another version of assistance there, right? So that's another hiring point, a leverage point for you to keep the growth happening. Maybe from 20 to 50 or 50 to 100, it's an ISA who's now going and finding those leads on your behalf, that kind of thing. All right. That was a little bit of a bunny trail, and I can't remember exactly how we got there. I think it was Bogdan's fault, but I'm not sure. So we're just going to blame him.
That's fine.
Awesome. All right, guys, thank you for those ahas. So do note, we're going to start each of our days together with some ahas, because I want to make sure that we're absorbing the information that we're discussing. I know not being in physical class is tough, right? Because this becomes more like watching TV, and it's harder to absorb the stuff that you're just kind of hearing. So we're going to make sure that we're recycling some of it each time. So for today, now it's 20 after 5. So if it's all right with you, I am going to hold our homework conversation on the Big Y until next time. Because we spent too much time on ahas. And again, I keep having to remind myself that instead of 3 hours, we're only here for an hour and a half. So, and Steve did let us know that the SPA and price reduction class will be Tuesday at 1 o'clock. So do plug into that. And what I'll do is I'll make that not just a review, I'll make that interactive where we can just kind of play back and forth with one another. If you want to role play back and forth, we can do some of that, and really get objective and clear about how we're having those conversations, because there is a technique, there is a method to successfully having those conversations, right? And I'll show that to you on Tuesday. So we stopped short in the materials on Monday before we talked about the powerful habits of growing a real estate business, right? And the powerful habits of growing a real estate business, should I show you that? Let me show you a quick slide first as we talk about that, which is somewhere here, I think. There we go. Silva, just nod your head if you can see that funnel. Okay, great. So, so I want you to take a quick peek at this lead generation model, right? And this is a lead generation model for a solo agent. So there's prospecting and marketing, which we're going to talk about the difference in just a moment, which then captures people that you then cultivate. And then as they spit out the bottom, one of a couple of different things happens. I just have to be able to see it on my own screen. You either get an appointment, excuse me, you finally get an appointment, and then you push them through the process, and then you push them back into that cultivation mode. But I want you to recognize that the lead generation model, what strikes me the most about this graphic is that the largest part of it, that whole middle piece, is about what? It's written on the left-hand side.
Your database.
Your database, right? It's about your database. And I think the mistake that sometimes people make is that when they're lead generating or they're in the process of client acquisition, right? What they're thinking about is, I need to find someone who needs to buy or sell a house right now. And they don't think about all the other people they come into contact with as the laters, because they're so focused on the nows. I will tell you, again, that's the difference between someone who is hunting for a paycheck and someone who is building a business based on volume. Because you're going to hear me use that word a lot, right? The volume that I'm talking about is the volume of people that when they think about real estate, think about you, right? And that has everything to do with that whole middle piece of this graphic on database. Questions, comments, concerns? All righty. We'll come back to that. So let's talk a little bit about let's talk about the difference between prospecting and marketing. That was at the top of that page. Who knows the difference between prospecting and marketing?
One is active and one is a passive form.
So one is active and one is passive. Which one is active, Donna?
The prospecting is
right.
active.
Prospecting is an active form of going and finding people, right? Marketing is more passive. Marketing, you typically pay for something, and over time, people notice. What else? What other differences are there?
One costs money and the other doesn't.
One costs money and one doesn't. Was that Stone?
Yes.
Yeah. So recognize that from a cost perspective, prospecting can be free, right? Because prospecting could be just you using your phone to call or text, right? Email. For the most part, we don't pay extra for that. We would have them whether we were doing it or not. Marketing oftentimes costs extra. You're doing magazine ads. You're doing farming to an area with postcards. You're doing web advertising, right? So marketing can cost money. What else?
Prospecting's one-on-one based and marketing's mass based.
Yeah, so generally speaking, a lot of your prospecting is going to be more one-on-one, where marketing is really one-to-many, right? And it's because of that that typical ratio that the results show up, right? One-to-one, you're far more powerful one-on-one than you are one-to-many, right? One-to-many, oftentimes no one really knows you, no one really has heard your voice, no one has really had a direct interaction with you. They've just seen your name and know that it's related to real estate, right? In that one-to-many scenario. And so the idea of one-to-one with the prospecting is that the results are typically better. What else? There's one more that I'm waiting for.
So prospecting can return a more immediate result, and marketing can sometimes take, you're waiting for someone to call you, come to you. You may have to do it many months in a row before somebody turns up.
Exactly right. That's the one I was waiting for. It's almost like you've taken this course before. So that was really the important one, right? In terms of speed, your one-to-one relationship, your prospecting opportunities typically create a faster return than a marketing return, right? And so here's what I can offer to you. If you're looking ahead, saying, okay, so I'm either brand new to the business, or I'm here to kind of get a shot in the arm to kind of relaunch my business, or I'm here because we don't know what's coming in the next 4 to 8 weeks, and I'm hoping this guy says something that can help me produce some version of income for myself over the rocky road that may be ahead of us, right? Recognize that a prospecting approach, when you personally need faster results, is a better approach than a marketing approach, right? For a lot of different reasons. If the reason you need faster results is because you're running out of funds, well, marketing typically costs money, right? And so a prospecting approach will utilize your resources at a better rate. And from a speed perspective, you going out and finding people to do business with brings you faster results. Even today, I would offer to you that whereas, and we're going to talk a little bit about this, well, maybe we'll just talk about it now. There are many of you on this phone call who have decided. Let me go back to this graphic. Who have decided that your job rests in number 1 and number 5. And you forget about 2, 3, and 4. You forget that this funnel exists for a reason, right? And the funnel is wider at the top and smaller at the bottom. And so there's a lot of you listening to the sound of my voice right now who are looking at this model saying, well, I don't really have a database. I will tell you that what we learned in the changeover from our old system to the command system, right? So many times we would be looking at agents struggling inside of our new system, and it wasn't because they didn't understand the new system, and it wasn't because the system didn't work right, or it wasn't because the system wasn't what we had hoped it to be. It was actually all of that and much more. What we recognize is that people were struggling inside of our new system because our new system makes the assumption that you run your business off of a database. And without a database, you struggle in the system because everything is database based in that new command system. Do you get the point of what I'm trying to say here, right? And so we have to kind of rework our heads around the idea that when you prospect and market, regardless of which one you're doing it to fill a database. You're doing it to fill the bucket. And then you're going to cultivate those leads over time, those people over time, such that when they do need your services, out pops an appointment. If you only focus on prospecting for an appointment, you miss the opportunity of long-term growth. You're playing paycheck to paycheck. And when you play paycheck to paycheck, what typically comes from your business is that result, paycheck to paycheck. Does that make sense? I want to explain it one other way to you. And this comes from Jason Abrams, and I love the way Jason outlines this for us. Where's my red? Oh, here it is. So I think some of you said you struggled seeing this, right? So, you know what I can do? Let me go to the whiteboard real quick, and I'll draw it on the whiteboard. This will be fun. It'll either be fun or disastrous. I'm not sure which. Let's try it, right? You only live once. Okay, so what's weird now is that I have to draw right on all of you. So let me do one other thing here. Okay. Okay, you're seeing what I'm drawing, right? Silva, nod your head for me. Yes. Okay, good. And so what this represents is it represents the sales cycle of any particular client. And what you have at the top of each of these is you have when people purchase. And all the rest of it is the time in between. What is, generally speaking, the average number of years between purchases for a typical client?
7 to 10.
So it's right around 7, right? Because I sometimes hear 5, I sometimes hear 10. 7 is right in that average range. So around every 7 or so years, especially in Fairfield County, because we tend to be, because we're a bedroom community of New York City, we tend to be a little bit more transient. And I say transient with love and no negative connotation, but we do tend to be a slightly more transient community in Fairfield County than other parts of the country, right? And so let's go with 7. And so here's the fascinating part that Jason Abrams talks about. He says, when you're lead generating and focusing on your client acquisition, and you're searching for a paycheck, when you meet someone who is here in the process, or here in the process, or here in the process, you look at those as bad leads. You look at those as people who aren't necessarily worth your time because they're not ready to buy a house right now. Do you see how limited it is to find people when they're just right there? And instead, what I would offer to you is, what if you started to lead generate for volume, knowing that all these people that you found in all these spots are absolutely valid, important leads. They're just not right now leads. They're how you build your database. They're how you play this game for the long term. And when you do things correctly, and before we finish today, we're going to talk about the 36 Touch program. When you do things correctly and build your database with all of these people who seem like bad leads because they're not right here ready to buy a house, you start to have more and more people over more and more time able to come back to you when they are ready to buy a house. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Questions on that? Because I kind of like that explanation when Jason brought it to us. I thought it was really kind of a great way to outline why we feel the way we do about leads sometimes. Am I lying when I say that that's how we feel about leads sometimes? Do you experience that?
Yes.
Right? And do you see how over time, when you start to build and build and build, and then apply the system that we're about to talk about to what you're building and building, you have more and more opportunities coming out the bottom of that funnel because you focused on building the database first. Now, yes, is it important to find the today buyers as well because you need to eat? Yes, I get that. But don't do it at the expense of throwing away all of the tomorrow buyers, even if the tomorrow buyers are 6 years from now. Because for those of you who have been in the industry for longer than 6 years, I will tell you that those of you who started doing this 6 years ago, you're pretty happy right now because all those people are buying and selling houses. And for those of you who started 6 years ago and you only looked for the people who were ready to go right this very minute, you're still today looking for the people who are ready to go right this very minute. It's the difference between a volume business and a paycheck to paycheck business. All righty. How we doing? You still excited?
Yeah.
You bored?
No.
Do we need to do jumping jacks?
No.
Okay, good. All right. Let me know. We can do some calisthenics if we need to, just to kind of keep the energy up. I'm supposed to be in a 433 day challenge, or I think I screwed that up. 33 sit-ups and 33 push-ups every day for 33 days. I will tell you this. 33 sit-ups, I can sit and do 100 sit-ups every day. That is not a big deal. 33 push-ups? I'm going to tell you what. I get to about 3, and I'm thinking, why am I doing this? Why are we doing this challenge? So we're working on it. We're working on it. I have done it one day. I did 33 one day. I have fallen short the other days because 33 push-ups, at least for me, that's a lot of push-ups. So Andy Walbert, is that you raising your hand, or is there an electrical problem at your house? You know what it is? I think Andy's cat is sitting on his computer. So Andy, if you can remove the cat, if you're still listening, if you can remove the cat because she's raising your hand over and over and over again. Okay. Let's talk about scripts, shall we? I want to talk a little bit about scripts, and then we're going to dive into back into database. But I want to address some scripting first, so that we can have a more valid conversation about our database. And so, talk to me when I say scripts. Tell me what your initial reaction is. Because everyone typically has a relatively visceral reaction to the word scripts. Tell me how they make you feel.
Focused.
Say it again, Stone.
Staged.
Focused.
Staged, focused. What else? You can type it too if you don't. Awkward.
Outline.
Prepared.
Anxious.
Anxious. Are you noticing an interesting pattern? Like the interesting pattern that I'm hearing is that 50% of the answers are, scripts. And 50% of the answers are like, woohoo, scripts. My guess is that the 50% that were like, woohoo, scripts, are people who have used scripts before. And the other 50% who are typically saying, they're kind of staged, they maybe sound like a robot, that they're not sincere. Maybe you haven't given them a shot. So I want to play you a quick video, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about scripts. So let me share this with you. Where do you live, script? Where do you live? I think you live here. Let's see. Aha, there we go. Take notes.
Hi, I'm Jeff Glover, and I'm going to tell you the top 5 things that you need to know about using scripts. Step 1, you're going to need to get your scripts from a top agent at the office, your team leader, a MAPS coach, or of course Keller Williams University. Step 2, we're going to need to do a total transformation of, instead of talking and telling, of asking questions. Selling isn't telling, selling is asking a series of questions that leads to desired response. So instead of talking so much, we need to get in the habit of asking questions. And asking questions gives us control of the conversation. Control of the conversation gives us our ultimate outcome, which is an appointment set or closing. Step 3, we need to listen with good intentions. Well, what I mean by that is we need to listen to their answers instead of just listening to them talk and asking another question that comes to mind. For example, instead of asking a seller where they're moving to and then going on to the next question, how soon would you like to be there? Ask them, where are you moving to? And when they give you a response, ask them, what takes you there? Step 4 in becoming better at scripts is we need to learn to mimic, mirror, and match the prospect. What I mean by that is we have to listen to their tone of voice. We have to speed up or slow down based on how fast the prospect is talking. That means when they respond and say, we're moving to Toledo, oh, Toledo, that's exciting. What takes you there? 93% of communication is body language and tonality. And that means only 7% are the words that we say or the questions that we ask. Step 5, we need to take these 5 points and practice them daily. If you think of NFL teams, they practice 50, 60 hours on the practice field for a 1-hour game. Our game is our presentations and our appointments, and we need to practice daily everything that we've learned every single day before we meet with our clients. When it comes to scripts, my biggest aha is that everybody has their own scripts. We're pre-programmed to have scripts, and we're talking and asking questions that are scripted. However, what we found is that most of our own scripts are no good. And so we have to learn the right scripts, the right questions to maintain control of the conversation. Thanks for watching KW Connect. Make it a great day.
Thank you so much, Jeff. We appreciate you. So what'd you hear? What were your thoughts or ahas from listening to Jeff?
To listen to what they're actually saying so you can respond in accordance to what they're actually saying.
Mamma mia, imagine that. Was that Christy?
Yes, that's me.
Yeah, right. So can you imagine the idea of actually listening to what the client is saying so that you can actually have a conversation, right? And that's a really important distinction, because oftentimes we think that with script work, we're just talking, right? We're just talking at people. And that's actually not the case at all. When you know scripts well enough, you can relax into a human interaction and know what comes next in your head, regardless of what comes to you, which means you get to live truthfully in that moment with somebody and still be able to steer the conversation in a way that delivers the desired result, right? What else? What else did you hear?
You need to accept that there's a
Repetition is the mother of
best way to do this, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah, so that was Neil, I think, right? And so hold on, I'm gonna silence a couple of folks. So yeah, don't reinvent the wheel. Don't make it harder than it has to be, right? Sometimes I find that, especially with new real estate agents who are newer to the business, or people who have been in the real estate business for a while and have never really achieved a level of success, it's because they don't know what to say. And here's the cool part. You don't have to know what to say. We're going to give you what to say. We're going to give you an entire seller consultation. We're going to give you an entire buyer consultation. We're going to review it with you next week, right? So you don't have to learn. You don't have to know what to say. You just have to learn what to say in certain scenarios, right? Even when we talk about objection handling, objection handling, what we find if you're a listing agent, there are only about 7 different objections that most sellers give, right? And anything else they might come up with lives in that area of, well, we can fit that into one of those 7 categories. So if you know 2 or 3 objection handlers for each of the 7 categories, that's 20 different objection handlers. There's nothing a seller could say to you that, again, you listen to it, you acknowledge it, you validate it, but there's almost nothing that could be said to you now that you cannot handle, that you're not prepared for. Someone said before that scripts are preparation. I couldn't agree more, right? Because now you're prepared. What else? What else did you hear?
Repetition is the mother of all learning. Repetition matters to learners.
So true, Bogdan, right? So we have that opportunity to practice these things over and over and over again, so that and here's what I can tell you. Well, you know what we should do? I should give you these 4 steps for scripts. Would this be helpful? This isn't in our materials, but I think write this down. There are 4 steps to great script work, right? Step number 1 is memorization. You're going to receive a script and you're just going to get it into your head. There's a lot of different ways to do that. I'll tell you, I went to school a long time ago and studied. I was an undergraduate drama major, and so my desire was to make a living on the Broadway stage, and so I had to learn a whole lot of dialogue. You know, you do plays, you do shows, you have to learn a whole lot of dialogue, and sometimes you have to learn a whole lot. You do television, you have to learn a whole lot of dialogue really quickly, right? And so there are techniques for memorization, which if you are interested in, I can certainly do a short class on that over the course of the next couple of weeks while we're trapped in our homes. But step number 1 is that memorization, right? You want to get that information into your brain. I find that reading it over and over again and then start saying it out loud over and over again Like, when I say over and over again, I mean read it out loud 100 times. Because at some point, as you're approaching 50 to 60, you can start putting the paper down and repeating it out loud without actually having to stare at it. Your brain has started to pick up on the words, where the first 40 or 50, it's your eyes that see the words. But after a while, your brain starts to pick up on it, and you can just store it away in your head. So step number 1 is memorization. Step number 2 is internalization. So you're going to memorize, then internalize. And what I mean by internalize is you're going to take that and kind of not just have it up here in your head. You're going to push that down into your body so that you now have all that stuff inside of you. So it makes sense to you. It becomes reflexive, right? I can remember when Debbie and I were still listing properties together, but before I stepped out of the listing field, we worked off of a script, and that script included the same jokes, right? And so at the same points, and it oftentimes would include the same hand motions at the same points, right? If we were explaining something, we would do it the same way. And we got good enough at that depending on who the point person was, for most of our time together, we did our listing appointments together, and we would switch point people depending on who had the relationship, who had the better relationship with the client. And we both knew the scripts well enough that sometimes she told the joke and I would laugh, and sometimes I told the joke and she would laugh. But it was always the same, with room for the next step, which is customization. So step number 3 is customization, but it's hard for it to be the same over and over and over again until or unless you internalize it, right? Or else you're way too much, you're in your head too much. And you can't make it about being in your head. If all you do is memorize, you're not going to be listening, right? Wow, this makes my ears look enormous, especially when I push them out. It's like having Dumbo as your instructor. Here I am, flying across the screen. You know, the other thing that I noticed once we got all this equipment in the office, I noticed, this is me doing self-sabotage. I noticed that when I turned my back to the camera, I'm just going to switch the camera, you started to see my bald spot. And I didn't ever notice I even had a bald spot until we put all this equipment in our market centers. Can you imagine? Anyhow, we should do this way for a while. It's like you have a backstage seat now. Isn't that fun? All right. So where was I? I was memorized. I was internalized. I was customized. Right? And so without internalization, it's all in your head and you're not listening. Once you've internalized it, now you can actually listen and have human responses utilizing the words that you know are part of the script and what comes next. And the customization of all of that, see, most people hear customization as, now I'm going to rewrite it so it sounds like me. There's a little bit of that. However, I will tell you that the most powerful scripts are 100% consumer focused. And they focus on the consumer throughout the entire conversation. And if you start to change them, the scripts are written pretty specifically, and they're written to elicit a certain response. Certain words are used because what we know about certain words is that they make people start to think in a certain way, right? And so if you look at customization from the perspective of, I'm going to now change all of this so it sounds like me, you're kind of missing the point. Customization as step number 3 really references your ability, once you memorize it and then internalize it, your ability to now kind of have a free flow of dialogue in a human to human manner and make changes as you need to get back on script if you get thrown off, right? Because we have to respond and react truthfully to whatever is said to us. If someone gets upset at what we say and we just ignore that and say the next line, like, that's weird. Like, don't do that. Instead, that customization allows you to vamp a little bit, to riff a little bit, to get back onto on track. And then the fourth step in script work after memorize, internalize, customize is capitalize. So step number 4 is capitalize. Once you've done the first 3, you now get to go out and utilize that newfound knowledge and skill that you have to make things happen. Does that make sense? Yes? Awesome. Why were we talking about that? Because of scripts. That's right.
I also like the mirroring aspect of mirroring the client.
Yeah, right. So another thing from Jeff's video is that mirror and matching aspect, right? That's kind of nonverbal script work, right? The verbal script work is all the stuff that we say. The nonverbal script work is mirror and matching. If you've never practiced that, it's hard. You have to spend some time figuring that out, right? And where that comes in really handy is, okay, so take me for example. Someone like me, I tend to talk a lot and I tend to gesture a lot, right? I talk fast. If I go into a meeting with somebody who's the exact opposite of me, who's kind of quiet and sits with their hands in their lap and is much slower and softer than I am, and I'm kind of doing my Rick thing at them, how does that make them feel about me? You can say it. I'm a big boy. Say it again.
They will tune you out.
Overwhelming.
Exactly right. I'm too much for them. I'm just way too much. Some people might think, oh, he's too slick, right? He wasn't listening to me, right? So you have to really be able to read what's going on across the table from you, and then mirror and match that. If you talk fast, and you're across the table from someone who talks much slower, you will likely have a difficult time slowing yourself down. And I'm purposely over-exaggerating this because it's really hard. See, I started to speak up because it's really hard for me to slow down like that. But remember, there's a mismatch there if you're not mirror and matching the person that you're speaking to. So really great point. I think that was Anita who brought that up, right? All righty. So here's the good news. We're going to give you every opportunity to utilize great scripts that we will present to you. What time do we go to? 6 or 6:30? 6:30, right?
6:30.
Okay. Phew. I thought I was only 6 minutes left. That was going to be a real problem. So we're going to, as I said before, we have an entire seller package that we will give you of scripts for an entire seller consultation, including pricing and positioning, including the follow-up seller strategy session when you're going to meet with the seller to adjust the price. We also have an entire package of buyer scripts that you will receive, and we will go through them all next week so that you understand exactly what that looks like. So here's my thought for you. I want you to start thinking about how scripts can be a really powerful tool for you, right? Just like a carpenter uses a nail gun and a hammer, right? Scripts are the tools of our trade. We kind of talk for a living. And my thought is if we talk for a living, wouldn't it be cool if, hey, Andy, I think you're sharing your screen with us. Could you stop the share? Hold on, there we go. Okay, it's my all-powerful screen. I have control over everything you all do. And so I want you to really start thinking about how you can utilize tools, scripts as a tool to help you get better, what your schedule might look like from the perspective of when am I practicing scripts? Right? Because you don't just learn scripts once and then you're done. You've got to practice them over and over and over and over again. I will tell you that one of the things that is pretty consistent when I teach this course specifically is people come to me afterwards and they say, I wish I could speak like you speak when we do all that script work. I wish I could talk to sellers the way you talk. I wish I had those things that you say to buyers right on the tip of my tongue like you do. All right, I'm going to be honest with you and to completely transparent. I was never as good at scripts when I was actually in the field working with listings, working with buyers and sellers, as I am today. Why? Why am I 100% better today than I was when I was in the field?
Teaching this class.
Because I have to know this stuff well enough to be able to model it for you. And I don't want to look like an idiot in front of 59 other people. Apparently, I was okay looking foolish in front of just one or two when I was taking listings, right? And yet the idea of repetition, right? I do this all day, every day. All day, every day. If it's not in this class, it's facilitating a mastermind or coaching some of you guys, or right, all day, every day. I'm so immersed in script work and in how are we bringing ourselves forward, on what are we saying to our clients to move everybody to the finish line, that it's constant practice. Constant practice. I don't have to think for a second anymore about how to answer a seller or answer a buyer. Right? And I want you to understand that from the perspective of, if you don't feel that way today, if you struggle with a listing consultation, or you struggle with when a buyer puts up a fuss about X, Y, or Z, or you're not exactly sure what to say when someone says to you, you're not going to bring us a number to list the house at? I thought that was your job. Look, I'm foreshadowing. Because next week we're gonna teach you a version of a listing consultation where you don't bring the number to the table, right? And so for those of you who are kind of scratching your head thinking, why on earth would we do that? Come back, because that's kind of worth the price of admission. And I think as we move forward into a shifted marketplace over the course of the next 6 to 12 months, you're going to be really, really happy that you have those techniques and that procedure under your belt. Because for those of us who, I know there are people on this call who, like me, were trained 10, 15, 20 years ago, who the training was, you bring all your comps and you bring the page that says here's what the number should be, and you're judged by the number, right? And then people make a decision. We're going to turn that on its ear. We're going to suggest that you be judged by the value you bring to the table, which has nothing to do with the number that the market says the house is worth. And instead, you get hired first, and then in partnership come up with a game plan around numbers, right? So many of us are so used to having that conversation around numbers be the hiring conversation. I'm going to suggest that we start looking at that differently. So if that is intriguing to you, that's just a little tease for what we're going to be doing next week. Questions, comments, concerns on scripts? No, we're good? Okay. What do I want to do now? Let's do this. Let's dive into database. And for those of you who have taken this course before, I know I'm making you nuts because I'm kind of bouncing all over the place. And if you remember on Monday, I did promise that we would do foundational work in Ignite combined with things that are relevant for today's marketplace, knowing that we are in this weird shifted world right now, and I want to make sure that I deliver on that promise. And so I don't want to get too far ahead in the material and not address today. And I also don't want to spend too much time on today and not get ahead in the material. So I apologize for what seems maybe like I'm bouncing around a bit, but we do have two different paths that we're walking down at the same time. So let's leap over and talk a little bit about your database and what you're doing with them today. First and foremost, as we demonstrated before, every single real estate professional on this phone call should have an active MET database. And what I mean by an active MET database is a database of people that you know, AKA have met, that you are actively communicating with, that you're actively working with, that you're actively providing value to. How many people is that? I don't know. That's going to be different for many of you, right? Some of you, it might be your experience, and by that I mean your previous experiences. How long have you lived here, right? Do you have children here, right? Because sometimes when you have kids, you know a whole lot more people than when you don't. Or sometimes when you don't have kids, you know a whole different set of people than the people who do have kids, right? Do you have, how deep are your roots here? Have you been going to the same church locally for 20 years, right? Did you used to work someplace else here, and is there a whole other set of people that from a previous job that you bring to the table? Or are you new here, right? I'll tell you that when I started my real estate career, I started with open houses and expireds because I was brand new here. I only knew one person, and it was the guy who sold me my house, and he wasn't looking for a real estate agent, right? So recognize that your experiences and what brings you to the table will determine where your database starts. The good news is today, many of us can simply start here, right? Here, I want you to do something for me. I want you to take out your phone, and I want you to go to contacts, and I want you to scroll all the way to the bottom of contacts. Right? You can hit Z and then go to the bottom if that's faster. Type in the chat box how many contacts you have, because it'll give you a total at the bottom. Here's mine. Whoops. I can't seem to type in the type anymore. All right, well, we'll just go with yours. Mine's 1464. I can't figure out why I can't go in the chat anymore. So, wow, Randy, 2,500. That's pretty hot. So now here's what I want you to do. I want you to divide that number. Well, recognize that for some of you, a lot of those people are realtors, right? So you have to kind of do a quick adjustment in your head to say, okay, if I have 2,000 people in here, are 10% of them realtors? Because this is what I do, and so all of our colleagues end up being in our phone, right? So if 10% of the people in your phone are realtors and you have 2,000 names, like Kim and Mike seem to have, I don't know if that's Kim or Mike. So 2,000 minus the 200 is 1,800. Now multiply that by, divide that by 6. So 1,800 divided by 6, and then I'd take divide that in half. Generally speaking, what Gary wrote in the MREA book is that you should get about a 6-to-1 return on your MET database if you 36 touch them for 12 months. Now, it might take you more than just the first 12 months to start getting that kind of return, but I want you to look at those numbers, and I asked you to divide it in half, right? Which means you're getting a 12-to-1 return. Most of you are not getting anywhere close to those numbers out of your database. And it's likely because we're not behaving the way we need to behave with consistency to our database. How many of you on this call have ever taken Len Schwartz's, somebody's sharing their screen with us again. We are so thankful to be able to see what you're seeing. However, bam, you're out. How many of you have ever taken Len Schwartz's course? What's it called? High Tech, Low Touch, or High Touch, Low Tech? Whatever that course is called. It's Len's version of how he communicates with his database. Because of our 475 real estate agents that we are in business with, Len is probably the best at getting the most out of his database. Len's numbers are about 18 or 19 to 1 the last time he and I spoke about it. I'm not sure if he's on this call. If he is and he has updated numbers, please let me know. But 18 or 19 touches to an appointment. So every 18 or 19 touches to his database, he has some sort of an appointment, either an actual appointment or a referral. Those are pretty powerful numbers, right? So recognize how much opportunity there is inside of your database that you may not be accessing right now. Some of you are sitting here looking at your database saying, okay, if I had 5 closings out of my database, I'd be thrilled, right? Well, let's work on how that can happen. So I'm going to put something on the screen. I want us to just run through it real quick, and then we're going to start talking about some scripts for today to get you in touch with that database. Let me just find where I need to be. I think it's here, and I think it's, where is it? Hold on, I'll find it. Okay, talk amongst yourselves, because I'm not finding what I need to find. So let me just take a quick. Remember what I said about dead air before? You see what I mean? Everyone's talking, it's just no good. Hold on, I'm almost there. Okay, here we go. Yeah, very helpful. A little annoying and very helpful. Okay, here we go. Okay, I want you to see this. Oh, see, I did have it. I just didn't scroll down. Okie dokie. Here we go. So take a look at this, if you would. And what this is the 36 to convert campaign, right? And so what this talks about is a way to connect with your database over the course of a year that gives you everything you need to create consistency and loyalty and have people remember that you are in real estate, right? This is a whole program that's designed to capture mind share, right? There are, I'll come back to it in a second. Let me go here again. There are there's room for 2 spots in everybody's mind for each opportunity that they have to think about something, for every category, for every different area that they have to think about. There's room for 2 slots, right? There's number 1, there's number 2, and then there's everything else. And if you think about, I'll ask you the question, and you don't have to answer this necessarily except to yourself. Think of 2 soft drink companies, right? Most of you came up with Coke and Pepsi. Think of 2 toothpaste brands. Most of you come up with Crest and Colgate, right? Think of 2 potato chip brands. That's always an interesting one because what I find is that Lay's always wins the number 1 spot, and then the number 2 spot is still up for grabs because some people say Ruffles, some people say Kettle Creek, some people say whatever else. I'm not a potato chip guy, so I don't know a whole lot more potato chips. Cape Cod, right? That's one of them. But so here's the question. With your database, when people hear your name, excuse me, when people think about real estate inside of your database, do you show up here? Or are you currently here? That's a really important question to answer for yourself, because if you're honest about that answer, it will give you point you in a direction that you need to go in to start capturing better mind share. Right? And this is that path. So let's just run through it real quick. What time is it? Yeah, good. We're good. Let's just run through it real quick. So this campaign, which by the way can be automated. I think I'm going to say this out loud, and then I'm going to ask Dan to make sure I'm right, so he can tell me in the chat if I'm right. You can automate much or almost all of this campaign inside of Command. Is that right, Dan? Chris, you probably know too. Can you do that? Yes? Yeah. Okay, so it is mostly true. That's excellent. Well, the one thing you really can't automate is your phone calls, right? And so if you look at this program, it is 4 calls a year. So you're touching your database phone to phone at least once a quarter. So that's once every 90 days, right? Here's what's interesting. I'm going to give you some homework tonight, and your homework is going to be to touch 30% of your database with care calls. Just come back so I can talk to you directly. With care calls for right now, for what's going on in our world, we want you to touch 30% of your Met database by this time next week. So whatever those numbers are for you, for some of you, that's not a whole lot of calls. For some of you, it's an enormous number of calls. And that's okay, right? That's okay. Because people need to be hearing from you right now. You know, you want to know what you can be doing right now to not just win business per se right now, but to set yourself up for the pop that's going to happen when all of this is over. You need to be in constant contact with as many people in your database from the perspective of how are you, how can I help? How are you, how can I help? How are you, how can I help? That's the only conversation you need to have right now. I'm actually not suggesting you call your database and talk about real estate. I'm actually suggesting you call your database and find out how they are, and find out how their families are, and find out if there's anything that you can help provide them with right now. Call your database, and if there are people who are in the high risk group for some reason, offer to pick up some groceries for them next time you run to the grocery store, right? You're going anyway, they could use the help. If it's someone who's elderly and shouldn't be out, almost insist upon it, right? Start wrapping your arms around your database so that they understand how much you care about them, not just how much you care about them when they have real estate to transact. And if you will take a focused effort on that activity right now, I guarantee you, when all of this is over and the restrictions lift and we come out the other side, those people will remember that. And some of them might need to transact business right away. Some of them may hear of people needing to transact business right away who didn't hear from their real estate agent for weeks on end, who never got a phone call from their real estate professional asking, how are you? How's your family? Is everyone healthy? How can I help you? Do you need referrals for any kind of professionals that might be able to work right now? Is there anything I can do to help? Whatever those conversations are, right? Because I'm going to tell you what, I've been home like you for the last 2 weeks. My doctor didn't call me to find out if I was healthy. My accountant didn't call to see how I was. He called to ask for some additional information for my tax filing, but he didn't call and ask me how I was. The guy who sold us our last car, he hasn't called. My insurance agent didn't call. I actually called him yesterday to find out how he was. It makes a difference. And if you're looking at activities to focus on right this minute, look no further. Make care calls into your database, 30% by next week. And then I'm going to ask you to do another 30% by the week after, and the rest by the week after that. So that in the course of the next 3 weeks, you will have gotten through your entire Met database. Like I said, for some of you, I know that number is large. And so what I want you to do is I want you to really look at a subset of your database, which is really that sphere of influence and past client subset, right? For those of you who are new or newer to the business, you may not have past clients. So for you, that's your sphere of influence. It's the people who know you, like you, and trust you, and are already predisposed to do business with you, who need to hear from you. So do me a favor. What I would love for you to do, Dan, since I can't seem to type in my own chat box, can you just put my email address, please, in the chat box for anyone who doesn't have it? What I would love for you to do is I'd love for you to send me an email with the number of people in your database that you're focused on, so that I can help hold you accountable over the course of the next 7 days to reaching out to at least 30% of them. So do the math for me too, because with 60 of you on the call, I don't want to have to do all that math. So tell me how many are in your database and what 30% is, so that we can do some check-ins a couple of times over the course of the next week and make sure that you're on track to hit that 30%. As I said, I promise you that this activity will create an opportunity for you, not just in the summer and the fall, but well into next year, right? And if you continue it, if you continue this activity, if you continue utilizing this kind of activity, regardless of what's going on in the world, right? Income from contribution, and make sure that people are aware of how you can help them, and set up time to meet with them and say, thank you so much for your support and for being a great version of you all the time. Thank you for being in my life. Thank you for helping me the last time you helped me. All of those kinds of things with your database are far more effective than sending postcards and recipes and I just sold it again type stuff, right? Especially right now. There's a place for all that other business-centered stuff. And for those of you who know me for more than 15 minutes, you may be kind of shocked at what I'm saying, because I'm really pulling back right now from all of the business stuff that we typically talk about in terms of creating and capturing mind share and making sure that you have a level of consistency with your folks. Because what I believe is that those of us who focus on the human side of things right now position ourselves far in a much better position to, which is what you do when you position oneself, right? We put ourselves in the position to create build and create a lasting bond with those people, right? Which is only good for both parties, right? That creating this win-win and helping people forward. So there's your homework, which I gave you 10 minutes early. See that? All right, what do we have left to do tonight? You know what? That might be all we're going to do tonight. We're going to go through the rest of the 33 Touch on Friday as we move into Source of Business. We'll talk a little bit about where your database should live. For most of you, that answer is Command. We're not going to spend a lot of time, or really any time, on teaching you Command in this course. God knows we have daily courses available to you, certainly right now, when you're at home, to learn as much about that program as you possibly want to. So for the last 10 minutes or so, what I'd like to do is just kind of open things up. What questions or comments do you have? What What ideas do you want to share with each other? What else are you doing with your database right now to make an impression and to really create that bond?
So Rick, I did start communicating or texting to some of the people that I have been in contact with. And I also last night went into my LinkedIn and started asking how the people that I used to work with are doing. Some of them have moved to California. Some of them are in different part of the country. So I already started doing the care thing.
That's great. That's great. And again, get started, right? So if you haven't started this, get started. As a matter of fact, what I would do is, as soon as we're done in another 7 minutes, pick up the phone and call one person in your database and say, hey, you know what? I know you're probably in the middle of dinner. I just wanted to call. You were on my mind. Wanted to call and see how you were. How's your family? Is everyone healthy? Is there anything you need? Is there any way I can help you? Right? Just have that phone call with one person to prime the pump, and then start hitting that tomorrow to hit your 30%. What else? Debbie, are you still on the call? I think you were doing.
I am. Yep.
I think you're doing something with your database that I thought was interesting. I think it was a conversation that you and I had. What's the thing that you're doing right now?
Well, I have a couple of things. I sent an email that was just pithy, very pithy, and just said, how are you doing? I'm thinking about you. I hope you are well. And if you know of anybody, if you or anybody you know needs any help, we have a lot of resources and could probably fill in gaps that you may have in your life. Just reach out. So I sent that out last week to whatever number I sent it out to. I got a tremendous response back. And I'll tell you what, it's like the gratitude exercise in bold. It just made me feel good because everybody said, blah, 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 you're so thoughtful. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That was awesome. Yeah. And this week I'm calling through the same list, especially if I didn't hear from somebody. Same thing. And nobody has taken me up. Nobody's made me do anything for them. And yet they're all very, very, very receptive, appreciative, and we've had some good conversations. And the whole point, what I'm hearing now, and you kind of hit on this, is we're not there to write business, right? That's not what we're doing, certainly in these calls right now when we're all trying to get our feet on the ground. And what we are doing is solidifying the relationship and building mind share. And the other thing is, easiest calls in the world, fun calls. And if you need to feel good, they're feel good calls. So it accomplishes so many things.
Love it. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
So there we go. Hold on. There we go. Somebody, I think it was George Gardone, who was in a mastermind that we were doing the other day, who said that he decided that he was going to find kind of like a subset of his database that are really more of his raving fans, right? People who he has really great relationships with, people who refer him business a lot, people who have done business with him in the past. And he narrowed that down to, I think he said 20 of his kind of best of the best in his database. And he decided that what he was going to do was, I think he used Amazon, and he just went out and he knew the kids in each of the households for those raving fans, and if there were no kids, what the adults could use. And he went on Amazon and he found just little games or little whatevers, to puzzles to send to their house to say, hey, you know what? I know a lot of us are spending a whole lot of time at home just thinking about you, wanting to make sure you were safe and happy and not leaving your house. Here's a puzzle to work on. Here's a game for your kids. Here's some coloring books and crayons for your little ones, or whatever, that kind of thing. I think he said one of them had no children but had 2 dogs, and so he sent some dog treats for the dogs. Right? You want to make an impression with people, do cool stuff for their kids and do still cool stuff for their animals, right? And I thought that was such a great idea to really come from contribution to the people in his database who he was grateful for, to make that impression. He just had done it, so I think we're waiting to hear the response, but I can't imagine it's going to be anything but stellar. So, you know, lots of different things that you could be doing with your database right now from a caring perspective. Any other thoughts or comments you have about things that you're doing currently?
People need encouragement.
Absolutely true, Moses. Absolutely true. They need encouragement. They need. There's a great saying that I heard a long time ago that says, "How do you know that someone needs encouragement?" They're breathing, which means people always need encouragement, right? And so especially when things are a little tough out there, if you can bring a smile to someone's face, know what I would do if I were you? Just something really simple. Find a great clean joke, right? A great clean joke, a family-friendly clean joke, and send a joke out to your entire database. Do it like every Monday. From now until the time that these restrictions and our current issues go away, every single Monday, send a new joke out, a family-friendly joke to your database, just to make people feel good, make people laugh. Those are the kinds of things that people really remember and will thank you for more, right now especially, more than the market update, right? So I think what I'm asking you to do is to take a bit of a pivot right now, right? We're take a pivot away from necessarily being the tried and true, I know all things real estate, and I'm going to tell you all I know about real estate lead generator or lead follow-upper. Instead, take a more human approach and do things that are helpful and encouraging and uplifting and funny. Find links to one of the things that we've been doing in the morning in the office when we start with our 9 o'clock Crush It calls is we play a funny video from Ellen, right? She's got all these great goofy things and they're 2 minutes long. Find one that you really like and send that out as a link and say, hey, you know what? This made me laugh. I hope it makes you laugh.
So
Just make sure they're clean, right? Because you don't want to have somebody play it for their small children and not have it be clean. Yes, Kimberly.
So yesterday, I got an email from Staples, and I wasn't aware it was National Crayon Day. So what I did is I clicked on the link, and it had 52 things to do with your family that doesn't necessarily revolve around crayons, but it's just activities that you can do inside. So what I did is I put the link in the chat. If you copy it, it takes you to a PDF. You can actually email that PDF to people who have children, and they can maybe do one a day. So it's in the chat.
Oh, that's awesome. You posted it in the chat already?
Yep.
Aren't you spectacular? So yeah, guys, I'm going to, once we finish in the next 25 seconds or so, I'm going to leave the Zoom room open for a while because there's a lot of things that were posted in the chat that you can scroll back through and copy and paste and utilize as tools. I hope that this was a good mix today of some foundational work with some updated, here's what we can be doing now for our database work. As always, it is my absolute pleasure to spend time with you. I do hope this was helpful. Please don't forget your homework and send me those numbers. I know how many of you are on the call, and I just found out now I actually have access to who it was because we found a way to take attendance. So now I know who you are. So send me all that information. It's the second time on this call. Kimberly was horrified. Send me that information so that I can help you help yourself stay on top of getting to 30% by next week. Oh, by the way, if you've already hit 30%, your goal is 50%. If you've already hit 50%, your goal is 70%. I want you to just keep moving so you get through your database as quickly as possible, because by the time we're done, we're going to have another round of conversation that we're going to discuss about hitting them one more time coming from contribution. Guys, have a great night. Enjoy your evening. We'll see you tomorrow. Be safe. Be well.
Thanks, Rick.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rick.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick.
Night, John John.